about how to make money in games. Full disclosure, I'm a developer, I'm a hacker. I'm not our best hacker, but I'm a pretty good hacker, so anyway. I've never made a mobile game, but I've hacked a lot of mobile games. And a lot of them. And I play games, and I play them by hacking them, and that's the way I do it, so yeah. And on top of that, I built a dating app that got 400,000 downloads, and I built a kind of a social purchasing application that got bought by a company and stuff like that. So I'm a Silicon Valley guy, I guess. And yeah, and so I created a company to defend applications. And in that journey, I met a lot of game publishers and stuff. And I started to ask this question, like, well, why are we treating all attacks as like bad things? Why don't we try to make some money on them? And everyone was like, what are you talking about? It makes no sense. And I was like, yeah, you can actually monetize them. So I'm not going to spend any time on this. You guys can go see the product over there. But we have a platform that basically makes protecting applications easy. There's no code, it's automated. You click a button and machine learning coding engine, which I built, codes the outcome for you. So you don't even have to learn how to code. You can just say what you want and click a button. Okay, so the main thing that I'm here to tell you is that there's money to be made when your game is attacked. And a couple things to keep in mind. Every single mobile game on the planet has cheaters. Most of them are innocent people, but a lot of them aren't. A lot of them are just kind of like out to make a buck and use fake users to build economies in your game and then sell those off or whatever. And most of the time that's not so bad. But a lot of times it is. And when you look at the kind of the population of cheaters, across multiple games and in the gaming industry, you can pretty much assume it's about 20 to 30% of your users are not your users. They're actually cheaters and fake users. So that's that. So the classic response, if you're in cyber, to these attacks is to block them, to say, nope, we're going to stop this attack. It's a bad thing. We're going to shut down the application. We're going to exit it. We're out of here, etc. But the reality is that's in a financial institution application, that's probably good. In a bank, that's probably makes sense. In a retail application, that probably makes sense. In a mobile game, maybe not. You have to look at cheaters as kind of players who are playing your game in a way you have not engineered yet. And so you have to think of them more as product innovators as opposed to actual people who are exploiting your back end. Okay, so if we throw out that model and we say, okay, that model's bad, that model's not going to do much good for us. Okay, how do we do this? What's the method? What's the schema that we have to be thinking about? And if you're developers, I'm sorry, I do have a very detailed version of this that goes into code and stuff like that, but we're not going to cover that today. This is just more the generic presentation, so I apologize for that. But basically, you need a way of detecting these events. You need a way, these cyber events, you need a way of passing that data to the application so the application can consume it. And you need a framework to deliver a different user experience when these attacks happen, other than exiting or terminating the application. So you need a model to be able to achieve this outcome. So let's talk about some use cases. So this was the first use case that I came up with. It seemed to work for some game publishers, so I will give it to you. So you probably know about BlueStacks and Nox and Mimu and those kinds of Android player platforms. Well, I came up with an idea and I said, hey, what if you could detect when your players are using these platforms in your game? This would require cyber defense. You would have to be able to detect the specific signature of BlueStacks or Mimu or Nox or whatever. But if you could detect them, couldn't you go to BlueStacks and Mimu and ask for a bounty? Say, hey, I'm willing to allow your players to stay on my game if you pay me to allow them to stay on my game. It was kind of a groundbreaking little moment there. And my game maker customers went and tried this and actually got rewarded, started to figure out how to create affiliate programs with these manufacturers. Keep in mind, BlueStacks, Knox, and Mimu are they're funded companies. They have private equity behind them. They've got a lot of money, so paying you to allow their users to play your game is not something that's out of the question. For them, it's cost of customer acquisition, so you can actually make money by going to the platform vendor and asking for it. But you have to be able to detect it, because if you can't detect it, then you don't have a store. You can't go in there and ask for it. Okay. Anybody know Game Guardian? Game Guardian. Ooh, Game Guardian. Yeah. Game Guardian. Do you use Game Guardian? Have you ever used it? All right. So it's a memory editing platform. It's a pain in the butt to use, quite honestly, but if you know how to use it, it's pretty cool. And what you can do with it is you can actually, like basically add points, do all kinds of fun stuff inside the game. Okay, so the second idea I came up with is, well, what if when an attacker adds synthetic currencies, points, values, whatever, into the game, instead of like blocking that or deleting those points or saying, hey, that's a bad thing, why don't you give them an offer? Why don't you say, hey, you just added a lot of these points, why don't you pay for them? And people thought it was stupid. People were like, nah, they're never going to do that. But the take rate on this was 27%. So 27% of cheaters who use Game Guardian or similar memory editing tools to add points to their game actually paid for them at the end. Yep.
Sorry, I have this question. So, what do you think that happens?
Oh, well, I think first of all, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot. So I'm an attacker, right? Now I'm pretty fast at it, but somebody else is probably learning for the first time, right? A lot of people are going through tutorials online and they're figuring out how to do it, and they're not determined hackers, right? They're kind of casual cheaters. They want to get to the end. They want to experience the game more. They're frustrated with their own kind of evolution in the game or whatever, right? Their own experience. And so they just want to get to the end. So they do all this work, and then they feel like, okay, well, I've done all the work. I might as well go ahead and pay for it. I got caught. I didn't really intend to do this, but I want to go ahead and buy it. And it's amazing to me because I never thought that attackers would do it, but they did. 27% did. And it's pretty consistent, like across games, like casual games, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It didn't really matter. Whatever it was roughly in the 20s, kind of 20% kind of take rate. So that meant, roughly a fifth to a third of the cheaters are kind of, maybe I call them first timers, that one.
It's like a new API, right? Like
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it blew my mind when we did this, and I've applied this model to a lot of other cheats, a lot of other scenarios, which is to say, when you catch them doing it, so go ahead and just make them an offer, and you can make the offer can be more points, the offer can be a higher level, the offer doesn't have to be monetary, right? You just give them a new offer, and all of a sudden you have a very different outcome. Okay. Anybody know Lucky Patcher? Lucky Patcher, ooh, Lucky Patcher. All right, so Lucky Patcher is like memory editing on steroids, and you can do all kinds of things with Lucky Patcher. Like you can do purchase emulation, all kinds of things. So if you know how to use it, it's like a really, really powerful thing. But anyway, I started to kind of come up with this notion that says, hey. This is, when you're using Lucky Patcher, by the way, you use it ongoing in the game. So you use it, over and over and over again. So I started to say, well, if somebody wants to do this, if they want to kind of do this, why don't you take them into a subscribe mode? Why don't you upgrade them into something where you say, hey, you can use these tools with my game for a fee. Right? So now that you're not talking about the one-time attacker, you're saying, hey, I get that you want to play my game with these kinds of enhanced tools and enhanced, methods out there. Totally fine. I totally agree with you. I want to allow you to do that, okay? I want you to subscribe to my application. I want you to subscribe to my game service that allows you to do that, that gives you the freedom to play my game with all of that. I'm going to monitor you, right? I'm going to monitor you, but I want you to feel free to go ahead and use whatever tool you want to use. Guess what the take rate is? 27%. 27%, same percentage. So it's roughly between 20 and 30%. Same percentages with memory editing and the offer. Same percentage is basically this. If you subscribe the user into an experience where they're free to cheat, like Cheater's Paradise, come on in, like go ahead, $19.95 a month, cheat away, knock yourself out, have a blast, right? If you allow the cheater and you say it's an acceptable behavior for you to cheat, I'm totally fine with that, as long as you have the technical wherewithal to do so and so forth, and you want to use these tools. Again, I'm going to monitor you, but do your thing, have at it, go ahead and da-da-da-da, and if you don't want me to give you little offers to pay for the points that you add for $1.99, and you just want free reign, go ahead and subscribe. 27%, crazy. All right, this one is my new one. I haven't stopped yet, and I'm going to keep coming up with these because I work with a lot of companies. By the way, I'm actually taking these same methods into the financial services space. Like, I'm actually telling banks that you can monetize fraud. And they're like, what the? And I'm like, yeah, when somebody enters a fake username and password, okay, tell them that they clearly love your app and that they want to be like a customer of yours, and give them an offer and see if they'll convert. It's blowing banks' minds. Banks are like, this makes no sense at all that you're trying to convert fraudsters into real customers. I say, hey, 27%, it's gonna work, I'm telling you. So this one's pretty simple. This one is, so you have these, again, keep in mind, you have to be able to detect these things. You have to be able to understand the technical reality of what's happening here. But let's assume you have some kind of, some bot, some speed hacking, some whatever that's going on in your application. And you say, hey, what I want to do is I want to create a league of players who play against one another in this way. Because obviously in some cases fair play is a big thing, particularly in competitive type gaming scenarios, where I want to say, hey, I want you not to subscribe, but I want you not to subscribe to me, but to buy into this special league, this special group of players who are going to all compete on the basis of their ability to cheat better than everyone else. So it's different than this. This is individually go ahead and cheat, and I'm okay with that. Okay? This is compete with others who are cheating. Okay? And I, on the back end, will ensure that when I detect that you are cheating, I will put you in competition with other players who are cheating. I will show you others like you who have the same technical ability to play my game as a cheater, and I will allow you all to compete with one another. This is new. This with some of my game publisher companies. And apologies, in cyber, you're not supposed to say who they are, so I can't say, because cyber is kind of a weird industry that way, but it is what it is. So I think this is going to be very interesting to create entire leagues of cheaters who know how to do it. Now, on the back end, you have to be able to collect all this data and turn it into real product, right? I mean, we're not going to go into all that. And again, the technical version of this has a couple of slides on how to actually detect all this stuff, but we're not going to go through all that here today. All right, so we have a framework to do this. It gives you all this, basically. We've gone through this: control, data, experience, monetization. So that's all good. It's again, this is the kind of slide, it's like way too hard for you to read, but in effect, you have a framework, you have a way of, you have a schema for what you consume in the application, you have a series of metadata, and this is just an example of a code sample of how to consume it in a standard application, and whatever. We're not going to go through it, but the point is, you have to be able to detect the method, not the tool, because obviously the name of the tool can change. So you want to be able to detect the method, you want to be able to consume what's going on, when, where, and how, and you need to be able to use that to be able to deliver the new experience. Okay, it's not working. I need you to click it forward. Go. Somebody hacked this. Somebody hacked this. Okay, we're getting to the end. I like to do these fast, by the way. I don't like to spend a lot of time up here. I actually have a lot of anxiety, so I don't really like to spend a lot of time on stage. Okay, so what are the do's? The most important do when you're thinking about how to monetize cheaters is keep them in the game. Don't boot them out. Don't kick them out. Now, so keeping them in the game for as long as possible, serving them up surprising user experiences and things like that is a very valuable part of how to monetize bad behavior, or in quotes, bad behavior. Remember, in terms of hard and soft revenues, don't just think about offers as dollars. Offers can be rewards for cheating. You can actually evolve your product fairly quickly. Perhaps the earliest idea I came up with in this journey was just to ask cheaters to submit their cheats, to submit their methods to you as a publisher, right? To involve them in the productization and product roadmap of the game, to say, hey, you've done something that I did not intend, or I did not design into my game. Tell me why. Were you facing some friction? Were you having some problem? Did you not like the game in that moment? And cheaters would actually write in, yeah, your game sucked. Everything was awesome until I hit this one area, and this one area I didn't like, blah, 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 so I wanted to get around it. So remember, cheaters are innovators. Some are anyway. Some are just actually out for fraud, but we'll talk, that's kind of a different thing. But a lot of cheaters are innovators, and they're trying to help, they love your game, they want to play the game, but they're facing some friction in there. So the easiest thing to do is just to get them into your cycle and get them to give you that, get them that feedback. Like I say, empower, don't block developers, give them tools to basically, it takes quite a bit. So if you're a mobile developer or a game developer, you're probably not a cyber researcher. I'm just going to say it. And if you're a cyber researcher like me, if you're a hacker dude, you're probably not a game maker, game builder. You're not. I mean, those are just completely different disciplines. So if you went to your dev teams and you're like, hey guys, I saw this presentation at the Hit Games conference, and I think we ought to do this, blah, 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 blah. Like, don't do that. That's, go find a tool like Appdome or whatever. Go find a mechanism that already has the detections and leverage it in a different way. Hack the cyber defense to achieve the outcome, as opposed to trying to get somebody to learn a new skill. It's just it takes way too long. All right. So remember, cheaters and players are different. I like to say, I'm sorry, they're not different. So I think they're the same. Cheaters are just people who play the game in a way you haven't designed. All attacks can be monetized. Maybe. We're on that journey and we're figuring it out. Don't confuse cheats with fraud, like people that steal identities and username and passwords and things like that. I mean, fraud's fraud. So, if you have somebody stealing a credit card, you're probably not going to monetize that. I mean, that's just kind of a thing. So, but that's pretty much it. And remember, it's all a game. So have fun with it. Try some new things. Try different things. Don't assume that because bad things happen that you need to stop them. Sometimes bad things are just change. And, those are opportunities to make more money and to build more happier user base. So there you go. That's my speech. Fast. Oh, questions? You guys have any questions? Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I didn't even stay up there for that. Anxiety got the better of me. Go ahead.
Yes, according to experience, the classical anti-cheats engines that everybody can use, like easy anti-cheat or Bugmaster or Battle.ai, how effective are they?
None. No, anti-cheat's fun for me because I always I have game publishers who are always like, oh, I use anti-cheat. And I'm like, okay, cool, let's do a live session and I'll show you how you can get around anti-cheat. So a lot of times, so cyber moves fast, like cyber's and particularly with like AI and stuff like that, like it's moving even faster. And so a lot of times what people do is they think that cyber moves slow, and it's a very big misconception. So you put something in your application like easy anti-cheat, whatever it is, and it's a fixed thing. You get like an SDK or whatever, and you put it in your application. It's a fixed thing, and it does basic stuff like tries to detect if the application's been repackaged or re-signed, or does things like, looks for common operating system class vulnerabilities and stuff like that. That's not the cheating. That's not where cheating happens. Cheating, you can have a jailbroken or rooted phone or not, and still use all the tools that are out there, Lucky Patcher and, Game Guardian and whatever. So it's what you really have to do is you have to design it like a part of your product. You have to say, okay, what am I experiencing today? What do I see happening? And you guys have telemetry and whatnot. You can tell if a player has more points than they should have, or has more value in their account than they should have at a certain level, etc. So once you kind of have a sense, what I always tell people is, come to me and tell me what your business problem is. Tell me what's going on in your game economy. Tell me what you want and you don't want. And then we'll design a security model that fits that, and then give you the decision whether you want to enforce it or monetize it, right? Whether you want to block it or you want to allow it and do something with it. And so it's the ability to have kind of that agility and that flexibility, which is really key, because your game economy and your game evolution is also moving fast, and your cyber needs to keep up with that. So it's not to say that there's not great products. There's great products out there, Guard Square and whatever. There's some great products out there. They're just fixed. They're just fixed solutions that adopt that cyber mentality of block, exit. And the worst ones out there, like, just crash your app. The worst ones out there just utilize crash. So say goodbye to crash-free rate. Like, you're hosed, and that. And so a lot of the cyber, keep in mind, they're cyber products. And so the cyber's defense mechanism is go ahead and just close the application. Not even close it, crash it, because it's the safest thing to do. Utilizing exit, because here's the funny thing about exit. So if I'm an attacker, I don't have to disable the defense. I can just disable the exit, right? I can just mute the defense, right? The defense is still there, but I just mute the outcome and continue on with the attack. So cyber products don't like to use exit, because if they use exit, it kind of undermines the whole thing. We use exit, we don't use crash, and it's because we figured out a way to do that. But you have to think about this stuff differently. And I came at the cyber problem as a developer first. I got into hacking after I became a developer. So for me, it all comes down to the user experience. All comes down to the user experience. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if it's a bank. I don't care if it's a game. I don't care if you're Marriott or United Airlines or whatever, customers, whatever. Whatever it is, like, you got to care about the user experience, because if you don't solve that, you're just hosed, man. You're just hosed. All right, any other questions? Hacking questions? Anybody? Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, why do you think big companies are not trying to monetize users? Like huge companies like Rockstar and ones like it.
Stay tuned. I think they are. I mean, Appdome is new. We're out on the market now 7 years, 6.5, 7 years. So today we secure close to 3 billion mobile end users, about 1,100 customers. I confess the game industry is new for us. We're probably 7 months entered the space, but there's some really big players deploying Appdome right now. So, like, we always end up starting at the high end of the market, and so there's some really big players that will be deploying Appdome, and you're going to start seeing these kinds of experiences and stuff like that. And we're already doing it with some vendors here in Germany, very large vendors here in Germany, and others. So yeah, I mean, just stay tuned. I mean, I think it's a fun time for us right now, because it gives me a chance to kind of take cyber to the next level and into that user experience, and I'm just so excited, so happy about it. So yeah, so I think you will, and I think it's definitely going to happen. And it's not just competitive games; it's casual games. It's I don't know what you would call them. I mean, I don't want to. If I say the games, you're going to know who they are, and I'm not supposed to say those things unless they tell me I can. So, but yes, I think you will see it. So. Cool. I want to thank you all for your time. I'm at the booth, so if you have any questions, technical questions or whatever, happy to answer them. But thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.